What's going on, everyone? Anthony from Chronometer Check here, and today I think it's pretty dang apparent that I have a problem. But hopefully my problem, my addiction in my vastly growing collection of watches way beyond my budget can handle is your gain, because I would like to get into in this video a bit of insight into what I think are some of the best entry-level automatic watches in 2022. Now, obviously, there's always, there's an infinite amount of watches from different watch manufacturers coming out each and every year. However, the prices are constantly shifting. A watch that was $60 a couple of years ago will shoot up to $150 due to scarcity and rarity as they become harder to find. Meanwhile, new manufacturers are coming out with more and more innovative watches with new features. Companies that would release watches with some features would upgrade those features, for not much more money. So the value propositions are constantly shifting for what you can get for your money. So I wanted to share a little bit in 2022 what I think are some of the best entry-level automatic watches. So this is for maybe someone either getting into the hobby for the first time, you're kind of researching your first automatic watch to get. Maybe you're not sure if you even want to wear a watch, or maybe you've worn watches before, you've worn quartz watches, but you aren't sure if an automatic watch is right for you, so you don't want to spend too much money. Or maybe you're just looking for a really good gift to get someone, and I think any of these watches that I'm about to get into, note that we're going to be discussing a lot of watches, just kind of using a lot of these as talking points, because I think a lot of these fall into the category, but they might not be the only watches that exist within these categories. So we are going to get into these a bit more in depth, but also going to give you plenty of other options to choose from. So let's get into the different types of watches that I think are great for someone getting into the hobby. Now, first of all, over here we have kind of some Seiko watches, and there are a couple of different categories of Seiko watches, and I don't mean categories in terms of like dive watch, field watch, chronograph. I mean categories more in the terms of, first, to kick things off, we have what are called the Seiko 5 watches. Now, it is surprisingly difficult to properly light multiple watches at once, so I apologize if there is a glares in this video, etc. But these are Seiko 5 watches. These have been around for years and years. They're highly regarded within the community for quite a long time as some of the best possible entry-level automatic watches you can get. Generally, even today, they come under $100, and I think there is, probably countless numbers of variations to choose from. If there's a type of watch you like, I can almost guarantee there's, for the most part, a Seiko 5 out there that has that type of watch, excluding some, very specific types of designs and very complicated complications. But when we're talking about bare bones automatic watches with certain styles, Seiko 5 probably has it. Now, the good news is Seiko 5s generally come under $100, so it's very easy to fit them within your budget, and honestly, some of the most budget-friendly you can possibly find. So that's why I think if you are getting in, trying to look for an affordable automatic watch, Seiko 5 is a great place to start. Now, that's not to say they're the best watches in the business. They're actually fantastic, but they do come with a few flaws. For instance, very often, the watches themselves are great, but they'll come on very, very cheap bracelets that you'll often want to replace, the minute you get it. So that might already spike up the price of the watch if you do end up getting some new straps to go with it, etc. It has a movement that is just okay. The movement inside these earlier Seiko 5s are a Workhorse 7S26 movement that is just basic. It literally just tells time. Some of them tell the day and date. They're not the most accurate by any means. They don't have any modern features like hacking and hand winding. And those are the kinds of things that you can see upgraded in some of these other, a little bit more expensive entry-level watches, which we will get into in a bit. So if you just really want a bare bones basic watch that looks fantastic, people will see that, think it's a watch much more expensive than it really is, Seiko 5 is a great place to start. Oh yeah, quick wrist check. Today I am wearing my Hamilton Khaki Field. A little bit pricier than some of the watches in this group here, trying to keep it around $200. Still a fantastic automatic watch nonetheless, rocking it on this brand new handmade alligator strap, custom from Etsy. I'll link these both in the description below. Still breaking this bad boy in. It is quite stiff. I believe they use some sort of reinforcement here that I believe will make the strap last for quite a long time, but it is A bit of a painful break-in process, not gonna lie. Anyway, back to the watches. Talking about Seiko 5, you might have heard recently what are called Seiko 5 Sports. So Seiko has been kind of trying to refresh the older Seiko 5 models, giving them a bit of a facelift with some upgraded features and new looks, some new styles, and these are the kind of watches that we see here. We have the Seiko 5 Sports Divers, which are kind of similar to their old Seiko Divers, which we'll get into in a bit. We have all different types of models. You know, they do have field watch models. They have sort of more dressy, sporty variants. So basically, that's to say, if there's a type of watch you like, there's a Seiko 5 or a Seiko 5 Sports that will probably fit that style. Now, the benefit of going with these newer Seiko 5 models over some of the older Seiko 5s that we previously discussed are Seiko upgraded quite a few features about them. They're essentially upgraded versions of those previous Seiko 5s. Now, a lot of them have refreshed designs and new styles, and that's all cool. Even the movement inside them is upgraded. So instead of the previous 7S26 movement, that was good, but not that accurate, didn't have many features, you know, just told the time, that's it. The 4R36 movement in these watches actually is a little bit more accurate, still not the most accurate. That's kind of what you get for an entry-level watches. They tend to not be that accurate, but it has a couple of cool new features such as hacking and hand winding, which are pretty modern features that you tend to see in a lot of modern day entry-level automatic watches. And hacking simply means that when you pull out the crown all the way, you'll see the second-hand stop so that you can very accurately set the time. It's one of those things that you don't really need. It's not like a deal breaker if you don't have it, but it's one of those things that when you do get it, it's kind of hard to go back. And similar to that, hand winding is pretty much exactly as the name suggests. You could wind the crown forward with your hand instead of just, you know, wearing the watch to power it up as it is an automatic watch or shaking it. Simply winding up the crown will power it up, and you know, it's a very, very cool feature to have, because if you wear this watch for, say, 5 days during the week and you want to put it down for the weekend, but you don't want it to stop running, you could simply give it a little wind up and you'll be good to go. And you could pick it up within, you know, a day, sometimes 2 days, and be able to pick it up and not have to set the time all over again. And like I said before, these new Seiko 5 Sports come in a bunch of different styles. Really cool. Seiko is experimenting with different colorways, dial variations, even case shapes and case finishes. As you can see here, we got a nice satin finish. Here we got a nice brushed and polished finish that just overall really look nice, and they kind of take the basic elements of the older Seiko 5s, take them up a notch. Now, other than the Seiko 5, there are a few other Seiko models that are really, really good entry-level points into automatic watches. Now, again, we're thinking about like under $200-ish here, so this is going to be a little bit of a tough one in the sense that right here in my hand is the Seiko SKX009. If you've looked up anything about automatic watches, I'm sure you've come across a Seiko SKX, as they were absolutely legendary for being really awesome tool watches and costing generally around $200. Now, they've been discontinued, so they're much harder to find, and it is kind of rumored that Seiko has sort of replaced them with these Seiko 5 Sports Divers. Not a complete replacement. I do have a video about that, link in the description, but you know, they are obviously very similar in style and you could see the resemblance. But there's a few things that these watches had kind of over those watches, like a true 200 meters of water resistance, and just a really tool watch nature that you just don't get with those other watches. Now, the prices got jacked up a little bit once they got discontinued. People sort of got in a frenzy and really tried to hunt them down, and you know, the prices were just inflating ridiculously. And you know, these are great watches, absolutely. One of my favorite watches in my collection, as it was one of the first automatic watches I owned that got me into the hobby. So obviously for sentimental reasons, and just for even from looking at it from a value perspective, it was a fantastic entry-level automatic watch. However, these days, it all depends on how much you can find it for, you know, because a lot of times you're going to be finding this on the gray market since it's discontinued. So if you could find it under $300, I would say around $250, this is a good value, but it's going to be very, very difficult to find it under $200 like you used to be able to a few years ago. Now, another brand that is quite well known in the affordable automatic watch level is Orient. Now, they kind of rival Seiko in the sense that they actually are a sister company of Seiko under Epsom, and they do offer quite amazing watches for the money. Now over here we have probably one of the most popular entry-level Orient watches one can buy. It's the Orient Bambino, and this watch is absolutely stunning. Looks definitely much more expensive than it really is, and you can often find them under $150. You know, they're very refined looking pieces, classy, timeless. You could wear this probably the rest of your life if you like the style. I mean, it's one of those styles that will never go out of style. On top of that, there is quite a wide variety to choose from. There's five Orient Bambino different versions, all with different lineups of different colors. So within each of those 5 different versions, there's a bunch of different colors to choose from. This tends to be one of the more popular. I believe this is the Gen 2 with a nice cream dial, blue second hand. I actually recommended this to a bunch of my friends. One of my buddies actually wears it regularly to this day for a couple of years now, and it looks great. Sometimes I see it on his wrist, even though I own many more watches and some that are more expensive, and I see it and I'm like, damn, that watch looks amazing, because it really does. Orient also does offer a couple of different other dive watches that are really, really awesome. Some are called the Orient Mako 2 and the Ray 2. They're a little bit of a downgrade from the Komasu in that they come with mineral crystal instead of sapphire, but still very, very cool watches in their own right. They kind of have their own little flair compared to the Komasu. Each of the 3 is a little bit different. And Orient is also coming out with new dive watches. You know, they came out with the Triton, which is a little bit more expensive. I think that's closer to $300 to $400, but they did come out with a variation of the Komasu, which I'm going to call the Komasu 2. I will have a video review of that also. Also a great value proposition. A different design altogether, but still very similar specifications of this watch and a similar price range under $200. So other than those 2 watch manufacturers, Seiko and Orient, when we talk about, you know, the real powerhouses of the affordable mechanical watch market, those are the 2 main powerhouses, but there are a few other brands that you should definitely consider, such as, for example, Vostok watches, which are a Russian brand that create really, really awesome and fun and very affordable automatic and mechanical watches. This is called the Vostok Komandirskie. It's a GMT that looks absolutely insanely awesome. Super steel, brushed, very solid piece in the sense that, you know, it's a solid hunk of metal. Now, these come around $100. For a GMT, that's a pretty sweet value. You're going to be very hard pressed to find an automatic GMT pretty much anywhere else for that price. Now, with that said, it does have a few disadvantages. You know, the movement inside is not the most accurate, has a couple of weird build quality quirks, like it's not the most refined and not the most smooth, whereas with the Japanese watches, such as the Seikos and Orients, you'll find they put a little bit more care into things like that. But it's still a very cool and fun piece. They have a million different dial designs with all sorts of quirky little fun military-inspired designs, like battleships and tanks and things like that. They have one that's called a Scuba Doo, which is absolutely notorious and is a very cool watch in its own right. So I think these are very, very fun pieces if you just want to try something and you don't want to take the hobby too seriously. In addition, I'm sure you guys have all heard, you know, all the many memes about Invicta and their ginormous dinner plate sized watches, but a lot of people don't know that Invicta actually does have a few lineups of really, really good, high quality, for the money, affordable entry-level automatic watches. And you're looking at one of them right here. This is the Invicta 1953. Automatic diver. As you can see, it just has a real classic design. It actually uses a Seiko movement, so that's kind of what makes it so good. But the watch itself is done very tastefully. It's not, you know, overly large and garish. It just has that classic dive watch design. Now, there's also a lineup called the Invicta Pro Divers, which also use the same Seiko movement. They have a little bit more of a Rolex Submariner inspired design with different colorways. Some can be a little bit gaudy, like I believe they do have a two-tone one, which is cool in its own right. It might be a little bit over the top for some people, but that's all to say, check out Invicta and specifically their Invicta Pro Diver lineup when looking at affordable entry-level watches. And finally, to wrap things up, there are a couple of other brands to consider. You know, Timex has been coming out with some automatic watches. They're very well known in the entry-level watches, and they are coming out with some very quality automatic watches. When it comes to Citizen, they have the Citizen ProMaster line specifically, some of the automatic variants are around $200. Take a look at those. For the Hamilton, you could sometimes find the Khakis for around $250 on the used gray market. Those might be a little bit well-used pieces, but I mean, to get a piece like this for that price range, absolutely phenomenal. And even Tissot seems to be wanting to compete in the entry-level market. So they do have some watches like the Tissot Visodate, the Tissot L'Ocle. I can't pronounce that watch for the life of me. So keep an eye on those different brands. Take a look at some of the watches I've suggested here and the different styles. I hope I rambled enough for you guys. I hope this was insightful into sharing a bit of insight into, the entry-level world of automatic affordable watches. There are a lot of great watches out there, and there's a reason I have so many. Even though I have so many other watches, some that are a little bit more expensive, these are always so fun, and it's so awesome to be able to experience so many different styles and variations for what's relatively not a lot of money in the world of watches. I mean, you could buy, of course, you could buy a luxury watch like a Rolex, sure, or you could have 100 gazillion of these sweet little more affordable automatics. Now, I'm not saying you should only buy these watches, but I'm just saying they're actually great values, and they're very, very solid watches, even though they are on the more affordable side of the spectrum. So I hope you did enjoy. Please let me know in the comments below what you think the best entry-level watch today is for about or under $200. Thank you for watching. I hope this did help you in sort of guiding you towards a more affordable entry-level automatic watch. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. We really appreciate it, and thank you for watching.